The slight smell of wood fire, the sound of flames devouring birch logs, and the gentle heat given off cannot be surpassed by any other method of heating a sauna. Bert Olavi Yalasya from his book The Art of Sauna Building.
Hi, this is Nala, and welcome back to the Sauna Trail podcast. Join us in our adventures as we share the story of how our family discovered the world of Finnish sauna. You might be wondering, why would anyone do a podcast dedicated to something as commonplace as sauna? It's like doing a podcast about toothpicks or dustpans or thumbtacks. Well, if you stick around, you might find out that there's more to sauna than you realized. Today you'll hear the story of the Wood Burning Sauna Group. We'll share how and why it was started and some of the most unique posts over the years. We mentioned in our previous episodes, Back to the Youpers, how a social media post about Old Victoria restoration was a catalyst for the growth in a Facebook group Pops had started. Before we explain that in more detail, let's talk about why he created the group in the first place.
Well, I've mentioned this before in a previous episode, but there were a few reasons why I started the Wood Burning Sauna Facebook group. The first one was to stop spamming my friends and family with all kinds of posts about the Finnish oven bath that I had discovered. And then another reason was I wanted to connect with and learn from people who understood this sauna beyond the American conception of sauna, which is kind of like a hot cedar closet that you sweat in that's at a hotel or gym. So I wanted to connect with those people and learn from them. And that kind of gives you an indication of why I chose the name Wood Burning Sauna Facebook group. I thought that was kind of a good distinguisher or a good descriptor of the Finnish practice and something that the American version didn't have. I'd never even heard of a wood burning sauna before we discovered real sauna. It wasn't my intent to exclude gas or electric saunas, but I just wanted to keep things on topic, which was real sauna. And initially, the group was very small. It was just me, a few friends that I invited, and then occasionally a straggler would wander in.
Yeah, I remember when you first started, we get excited when a new person joined, or I remember one time it was we had 200 in the group and even the kids, we were all excited, 200, we have 200 people now. So that was pretty fun.
Yeah. So that brings us to our previous episodes about visiting the Upper Peninsula of Michigan. On our second visit to the Upper Peninsula, we took some photos of Old Victoria restoration, and those photos and our link to our group were shared by the Youper Pasty page, which is pretty much followed by Youpers, as you might expect, and tons of people started joining the group. So here's the post that we had in the group as these Youpers started joining. I said, please introduce yourself, tell us what type of sauna you have, and if you haven't already guessed the name of the group, the purpose is to discuss and share our love of wood-burning sauna. So again, we were still kind of focused on that wood-burning aspect to keep it on track. And the first comment was from Ken Hoopala, whose family's from the UP, and he ended up going on to write a story for the Sauna Digest website about an old family sauna of his. And these Youpers were exactly the kind of people that we wanted to learn from. They had a sauna practice that often tied to Finnish heritage and was many generations old.
It was pretty fun to see the people joining.
Yeah, so we ended up not only learning from these new members, but even meeting some of them and becoming friends and even sauning together. So some of the people we've connected with, and this is by no means a comprehensive list, but I wanted to shout out a few people. These are some of the specific people who have taught me lots about sauna. Kimo, Pablo, Dennis, Steve, Jeff, Kev, Glenn, Wade, Nils, Dave, Jesse, Rudd, Shane, Scott, Arnie, Candy, Lee, Adam, And some of these are going to be future episodes. I say that because as I got to Adams, we're going to talk about their family sauna in a future episode. Mark, Risto, Lassie, Logan, Joe, Carolyn, Frank, Teresa, Alexander, Remus, the Torlas, Dan, Nathan, Garrett, Rick, Jake, Christopher, Devin, Jim, Gary, Hilka, Ken, Bill, Bob, Gary, Matthias, Matthew, Randy, Walker, Justin. There's so many. I've left off so many people. And you can even hear some Finnish names in there. So I just want to thank all of you who are part of the group for sharing your culture and passion with us and even hosting us at your saunas. I'd like to share with our listeners and viewers, especially the viewers for this episode, some of the unique posts in the group. I'll start by mentioning the first person in the group that we met in real life and sauna'd with, and that was Jeff Pizek. And his episode's coming soon, where we talk about how we're a little bit nervous to meet this stranger who we met on the internet and to sauna with them.
Yeah, we weren't sure if we were going to get axe murdered or have a really good time.
Spoiler alert, we didn't get axe murdered. And then another person we met was Dennis Marjama, and you can see some pictures here of his wood carving. He's a very gifted wood carver and has done some sauna-related carvings. And then this is inside his sauna, which is very unique. His father was a miner in Montana, and you can see his stove there is made to look like a mine cart full of rocks, which is one of my favorite stove designs I've ever seen.
That's so neat. I love it.
And then another member who we also met, he goes by Catskill Weather, and this is his sauna, which looks really nice, but it's also a smoke sauna, which is super unique in North America. And here's another build of his. He has probably the most unique builds I've seen in North America. And then we'll show some more pictures of his later as we just show the different group photos. This rather large sauna cabin is from a police officer, Officer Bernie. And he's actually going to show up in our next episode when we have a run-in with law enforcement. So we had a run-in with the police, and then he ended up posting in the group. So we'll tell that story next time. And then one gentleman in the group, Mark Johnson, he built some really nice dovetail log saunas. And so I have a few pictures of those from the group. This is a kit one that he was selling. Then this is kind of like a small showcase one he had that's super nice with a live grass roof.
I mean, it looks so cool. It doesn't even look real.
And the stove is interesting. It's a barrel, but then it's just surrounded by tons of rocks.
They really are beautiful, beautiful structures.
Yeah, and then his large one, you can see, has a sauna on one side, a changing room on the other, and a breezeway in between. If I had the funds to just buy any sauna, that might be the one that I would buy.
Yeah.
And then you can see he's got a tongue and groove cold plunge right next to it.
That's pretty incredible.
Then here's some more people that we've met and sauna with. I won't talk about each one, but several of these are going to show up in future episodes. So you can see me sitting in front of different saunas or standing with people after sauning. And they were all excellent, wonderful hosts, and we learned lots sauning with them.
And it really was such a privilege to be invited to sauna with all of these people. I know it just made our experience of sauna even that much more enriching.
Yeah, so stay tuned to hear more of these stories. And one fun thing that we did was we had a few years ago collected pictures of the member saunas, and we created a calendar that featured one of these saunas each month. So they had some from Minnesota, some from Wisconsin, Michigan, New York, Finland, and many of these saunas are just excellent. And we've even used a couple of them.
Yeah. That was a really fun project to make. I think we got so many people sending us pictures of their sauna. We had to kind of, narrow it down to just the 12. And it was hard to do that because there were so many great saunas out there. that are just beautiful and wonderful settings, and that people are really proud of them. There's family history to them. There's wonderful stories behind them as well.
Yeah, and speaking of wonderful stories, there's one story I want to share with all of our listeners. We had a member join. His name was Ted, and he was an older member, and he was starting to lose his memory. The reason I could tell that he was starting to lose his memory is because he would post the same thing over and over and over. And at first as a moderator of a group, that was kind of frustrating or kind of annoying. But eventually I realized he would provide a little bit more information each time that he posted. So I started to get this more full picture of the story that he was telling over and over and over. So I'll share some of those posts with you. He said he grew up in Joffrey, New Hampshire, and his mother was Finnish. His dad was Swedish, as you can see in this post. And they enjoyed sauna. Well, there's more to the story, and he's going to keep telling it. So in the next post, he said that his dad was a caretaker at this property for a wealthy banker. So I was like, oh, that's interesting. They had this sauna at this property that wasn't their property. Turns out that the owner, Mr. Blaine, even came down and used it one time. And so each post, I just learned more and more. And the story was that Ted's mother was Finnish, his dad was Swedish, and they were caretakers at this large, well-known estate. I think it was called High Mowing Estate. And they built a sauna on the grounds in the woods, and they would sauna every Saturday night. And again, I learned this from his posts. It's pretty rustic at wood burning. And the owner, Mr. Blaine, tried it once and he didn't like it. And so Ted said that several times, but one time he said why is because Ted made too much steam when Mr. Blaine was in there and he had to run out to the changing room. But apparently the Blaine children enjoyed it. Actually, it'd be fun to track those Blaine children down and hear their memories of it.
Yeah.
If there's any of them still living. So I ended up piecing together this picture from Ted's growing up in sauna. It's a funny, it's a rich story. And there were some other members in the group that were in the area, and we ended up tracking down that sauna. So here's some pictures of the sauna that his dad built in the woods down the hill from the estate.
That's so cool. I do remember when Ted first started posting these, it was like, I want to say almost the same day he would post one. And then later that day, he would post another thing. And it was almost verbatim the same thing. And I do remember thinking, what is this guy doing? Why does he keep doing this? And then I think somebody in the group knew him and happened to say, oh, Ted's losing his short-term memory. Then all of that made sense to us. So
yeah, those are the kind of posts that I love so much. Oftentimes people ask about what kind of wood do I want to use? What kind of stove should I get? And that stuff's interesting to me as well. But it's more those stories in the background and that rich texture. That's my favorite stuff. There was another post, I couldn't find it. I wanted to show a picture of it, but there was a guy sauning with his dad. His dad was older, and his dad was just sitting there in the changing room. And I don't know that he looked grumpy, but he was just sitting there, and it's like, why are you taking a picture of me sitting in this towel in the changing room? It's one of my favorite photos, but I have to track it down.
I can picture that photo too. I know exactly which photo you're talking about.
So I thought we would just go through some other photos that I selected from the group that were interesting and just give a brief comment on each of them. This one's from Catskill Weather's Smoke Sauna, and what a great photo.
That is beautiful. That's beautiful. And we have used that sauna.
Yeah. I mean, as far as a builder, like I said, he's an excellent builder. The stove actually sits down below the floor. It's a huge stove with tons of rocks. You get to it from the basement, and it can be either a smoke sauna or a continuously fired sauna. Just a great sauna.
Yeah.
Here's a story from someone named Michael. who was outside cooling down between rounds, and someone drove by shining for deer and ended up shining on a guy sitting out naked between sauna rounds. This is from Helge in Norway, and what a beautiful old sauna in Norway. I like to see a rich sauna culture in Norway. A pretty cool old sauna here on Little Shag Lake in Gwinn, Michigan. And they have lots of saunas on the two shag lakes that are near each other. And then this is me visiting with Arnie Kangas, who lives up in the UP, I think just outside of Rudyard. And he is a sauna stove builder, so you can see he's working on one right there.
This one is a wood carving from one of the members named David. So that's really neat. There's this picture of the sauna there, the little canoe. It's not sure who did it, but David shared it with us. This one is a smoke sauna. It looks like maybe a public one that you can rent in Sweden, shared by Tommy.
And then here's a taller sauna being built by one of the members. Probably inspired us in our sauna build. And Frank Eld saying that sauna is his happy place. And someone with a ladder going into a cold plunge hole. And then this is a unique mobile sauna that's pretty tall, it looks like.
Yeah, that is tall.
Either that or just super skinny. Remus looking outside of his smoke sauna. Someone posted, I think it's from Chipotle, saying it's like a sauna for tortillas, something to reheat tortillas. I thought that was a creative post. And then this post from Murray's, a rather interesting stove design. And John, our friend John, with Friends Don't Let Friends Do Infrared shirt from Warm Timber Saunas. And then Alexander from Taiga Log Homes, every now and again he posts some stuff. And his saunas or banyas are built with huge logs. Is Jeff, Pyzik, and Kev at Chicago Sweat Lodge. I sounded with them there. That was the first time I went to Chicago Sweat Lodge. That was great.
This is from Jennifer, and she's just showing us a sauna that was built in the early 1980s, and I love the buckets in there with just full of water. That looks like a well-loved, well-used sauna.
Yeah, those old grandparent saunas, those are the best ones. Here's another one that's like that. I don't think it's quite as old, but from Carolyn, and lots of buckets again.
Yeah, washcloths, loofah.
And she's posted several times. I think they're right on water, but they have a really cool sauna.
This one is on an inland lake, so it's not on Superior, but inland. And it used to be a boathouse, so that's really cool. They converted it into a sauna, and then they get to cool off they have a sitting room as well that they can cool off in. So that's really neat.
And then one of the neater pictures from Finland, where you have a sauna with tons of snow on the roof, and the pines everything's just covered with snow.
That's beautiful. I love snow like that.
That'd be a great experience to sauna there.
Yeah.
And then this sauna was in our sauna calendar. I think it's up in Canada, but those fall colors are beautiful.
And this one is from Fred, which he has been in the sauna group for a long time too. So this is his father's sauna, built in 1940. So he grew up using it, and then in 2000 he moved it. Again, it's these stories that are so great that it's like father and grandfather. And
yeah, now Fred's moved overseas and he's built his next sauna, which is pretty nice. This is me sauning with Timo in Colorado, and then hexagonal, octagonal, I don't know.
Some shape.
This says octagonal, but it says it was 120 C, so it's pretty spicy there.
And this one is from Alan. It looks like it's on the water, just set back just a hair, but that looks really, really fun with the chairs out there.
And I think Alan's up in Canada. Another like a rustic old one. This one's at deer camp. Rustic, but still good. Nice sign for the steam room. It just reminds you that sauna's for washing. Those of you who are watching the episode, you'll get why Julie's laughing. Someone posting a picture of some moose drinking out of their cold plunge.
2 of them, not just 1, but 2. Oh, whoa.
Then this is a pretty unique and very nice build that Brian posted. Then we love to see the generations of families sauning together.
Yeah, these are some of my favorites. Just seeing the little kids with the families. But cool memories.
Then sometimes we will post sad things like this. This has happened a few times over the years. People have pictures of their saunas burning down.
Those are really sad. Those just break my heart to see.
And then Gary's posted things several times. He has a couple saunas, I think, that are really nice. And there's his granddaughter in the sauna bucket.
That's the cutest picture. I love it.
Another sauna with a bunch of snow on the roof. And then Newt, I'm trying to remember where he's from. I think maybe Norway.
Wow, that's incredible.
Yeah, and he's posted a few different things that are really interesting. There's him with a bunch of guys in the sauna, including some older dudes.
That's cool.
Yeah, and then there's Newt or a friend standing under a waterfall. That's quite the cold plunge.
That's amazing. Oh, is this like miniatures of the build? Oh, that is really neat.
Yep. And then people will post pictures of their builds and the various stages. Then this is me visiting with Jim Kurti up in the UP. And then we get some posts from Finland. It's a beautiful log sauna.
Yeah, it's a beautiful structure.
Very tall.
Look at the smoke marks above the door. It's very black above the door.
Well, I think it's a smoke sauna.
Yeah, but that's really cool. Wow. So this is Pamela, and it looks just like snow and ice in a cold plunge.
Yep.
That looks so cold. Oh, that's pretty. This is Sten from Larsmo, Finland. Just in the autumn. It's beautiful.
Yeah, that's a great picture right there.
Yeah.
It's very frameable. It's going to have to go in the next calendar.
Yeah. Agreed.
Beautiful rustic old sauna. These are my favorites, like I've mentioned before. And then this one was built in the 50s. Kind of unique stove setup, if you can see that.
Oh, does that door open to the rocks in that bottom picture?
I think that's to the fire chamber.
Oh, okay. I see.
But I think there is I don't know, but I think there is a door to the rocks as well. Every now and again, we'll get some memes. This one's from Adam.
Talking about how to pronounce sauna or sauna.
Yeah. And that if you say sauna, you're way outnumbered. Another meme here.
That's funny.
A little Bernie Sanders meme. Then this was a unique stove.
Wow, I have not seen this one. That's very different.
Yeah, I don't know if the steam comes out of the dragon's mouths.
That would be cool if it did.
Yeah.
Whoa.
You just put a little red light on it. It would look like fire's coming out. Someone posting their, this might be the warming room. They've got their woven rugs, which is a very traditional Finnish thing. Bob posting his build. I think it was fairly affordable, and he put it together. And I love these kind of builds where it's not the fanciest sauna in the world, but it definitely gets lots of love and use. And Bob posts quite often in the group, and he definitely loves sauna.
Another sauna from Mike that has buckets, but I love that they're from Menards and just 5-gallon buckets.
Yeah. 3 5-gallon buckets, 3 ladles, and several like hoses and water and everything. And then I think plywood walls. So this is a very functional sauna as well. And it has a window that opens.
Yeah, I like that.
So those are just a few of the interesting photos that I pulled out from the group. And we'll put those on the website so you can look through those if you were just listening to the audio version. I apologize that you couldn't see all those. like I said, we just learned so much from seeing all those different saunas. It trained our sauna AI for sure. So that's why the group has been an invaluable learning tool. And not just the Wood Burning Sauna Group, but other online forums as well. The sauna subreddit's very good. There's been different groups that sprung up from the Wood Burning Sauna Group or beside it. There's a Wood Fired Sauna Facebook group that's excellent, and the Sauna Design and Construction Group, which sprung from the Wood Burning Group, is also excellent. And several of those groups are quite big. And it's interesting to see why people join the group. We started asking questions of why, and so here's some of the answers that people give. And it's not the typical health reasons or detoxing reasons for the most part. There's a lot about steam and the tradition of it and getting together with family. And I've joined a few other sauna groups online, and sometimes I'll post the same questions in the Wood Burning Sauna Group or in a more American health focused one. And it's interesting to see the different answers. So I might ask, like, what soap do you use in the sauna? And in the Wood Burning Sauna Group, they'll have all kinds of different answers. In the American one, they'll be like, what are you talking about?
Soap in the sauna? Are you crazy?
Or what age do you let the kids start sauning?
I bet people freak out. Like, what do you mean you're kids? It is pretty interesting to see that difference.
I've even taken some surveys in the group where I asked people based upon their background how they use the sauna, how much water. So you can see this question was asking about whether or not you grew up with sauna and what your thoughts were on a drain in the hot room or how much water you used. So it was interesting to compare and contrast people like me who didn't grow up with sauna versus someone that did grow up with it and kind of has that cultural background.
It's interesting to see the results.
So I just want to give a hearty thanks again to the members and for them being willing to share all this information with us and their saunas with us.
Thanks for joining us today as we shared about the Wood Burning Sauna Group history and its wonderful members. If you aren't a member of that group or the others we mentioned, join via the links in the show notes. Next week's episode will be a special 360-degree showcase of a few of the saunas we've visited, so stay tuned for that. And if you haven't yet, join our locals community and say hi. It's free to sign up, you'll get regular updates from us, and if you enjoy the content and would like to support this podcast, Locals has the option as well. The address is thesaunatrail.locals.com. We appreciate all of our supporters and fellow sauna hounds. Our podcast can be found on Spotify, iTunes, YouTube, and other streaming platforms, as well as our website, thesaunatrail.com. New episodes release Saturday, which is the traditional Finnish day for sauna, also called Sauna Päivä. We hope to see you on the Sauna Trail.